And action. Dearly beloved, welcome to another episode. Today, we're going to talk about marketing. And this is going to be a different kind of marketing conversation than many of the marketing conversations you might listen to on the internet, because I have my dear guest, Ross O'Loughlin, who is a former engineer turned marketing strategist who runs Conversion Engineering. You can check him out at conversionengineering.co, which is a company that helps education entrepreneurs sell more programs without relying on the launch model through his proprietary open everyday system. So this is a conversation I really wanted to have. This was a referral from Tad Hargrave at Marketing for Hippies. So many of you that know Tad's work, this Ross and Tad are buddies. Tad and I are buddies. So now the Holy Trinity is complete. And I am stoked to have this conversation because many of you know, I mean, MAJIK Media, we have the agency side of what we do, where we'll help a partner build their new platform, consolidate their life's work, and relaunch as a membership or community subscription, an app, etc. And we do the launch for that. I don't love the launch model. I mean, who really loves the launch model? It's exhausting. It's tiring. It drags on for a long period of time. And so, in today's conversation, we're going to dig into that a little bit. But first, I just want to talk about one of the pieces that I know you're infamous for around how marketing can feel good and right. So let's dig into that. Is like, what does that actually mean? How does marketing feel good and right?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me,
And
Brandon.
welcome.
We're not talking about an intro. so, um, yeah, so but let's just get stuck into it. So that's one of the things I hear a lot from the clients who are coming to work with me, and I'm usually working with what I'd call a lot of mainstream marketing refugees. So, we all kind of stumble into the world and we of online business and marketing, and there's all the big name gurus, and like their stuff works. Don't get me wrong. Like they're big for a reason. Like Jeff Walker is incredibly successful because he's very like the system works, and he's created a thing that works like for all sorts of products, and it's running for 20 plus years now at this stage. Like you got to give it to dude, like in a space where a lot of programs are only around for a year or two before they quietly get shuffled into the background. Like his thing clearly works, but a lot of people come to me and they're like, they don't like the way it feels when they're forced to do their marketing. And like the launch model kind of fits in that category. You know what I mean? Now, it's funny you say like you hate the launch model. I actually know some people that love it, and they take it. They like this building the hype and being on stage, and like the whole like thing, the energy, like it just suits their personality and their vibe, and they've figured out practices where they're build their whole year around it. Like it's what they like. That's not me. You know what I mean? And like the way that I tell people when it comes to marketing is like a lot of stuff works, but you have to find something that I think works on two levels, right? So the first is it fundamentally effective? Like, does it actually produce a result? And launches are definitely like fundamentally effective.
Yeah.
Then there's a lot of people selling strategies out there that are not fundamentally effective. So like you got to buyer beware in the world of mainstream marketing. But then the second thing is like, is it personally effective? Like, does it work for you, your style? Is it sustainable? Do you enjoy doing it? Because if it's not personally effective, eventually you're just going to stop doing it, or you're going to start avoiding it. And that's the cycle I see with a lot of people in the launch world is they do the launch, it works great, but they didn't really enjoy themselves. And then they don't engage with their marketing again because the launch is the only effective thing they have found. And they're silently hoping they don't have to do it, and they avoid it because it's exhausting, and they're just worried about the next one they're having to do.
Yeah.
And they only engage with it when the pain of watching the money in their bank account drain down is now more severe than the pain of wanting to do the launch. And then they're switching over back to the launch. And then you're just cycling back between these two worlds of pain and relief. And like, that's not really like, if you're not enjoying that, that's not a healthy way of doing your marketing. And I've found like for helping people build consistency in their business and being open every day, Like you have to find the things that feel good, that you enjoy from the marketing perspective. And you have to build in feedback loops for yourself so you show up consistently and it's not something that you're avoiding. Because if you're avoiding your marketing, you're not going to do it. So that's kind of how I describe it. And there's lots of reasons things can feel good. Sometimes it's a stylistic thing. Sometimes it's because your teacher or your coach is teaching you something that just doesn't align with your values. Sometimes it's workload management. Like there's a whole bunch of things, but like getting down to having it feel good and right, I think is the question that most coaches and educators need to work at solving.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And the launch model, like it can be fun, especially when it works. When it works, it's fun. When you got hundreds of thousands of dollars pouring in over a very short period of time, it's very fun. That's like, oh wow, it's working. This is so fun. And it can be exhausting though. I mean, this is why we've created so many templates around the way that we do launches, so that every time you do it, it's less and less work. But when you're doing something from scratch, it does suck.
Yeah.
So with the way that you do it around being open every day, I mean, I have a
Yeah.
membership. People can join at any time. I sell an online audio library that's available for sale anytime. What are some of the models that you see that particular framework work well in?
Yeah. Um, so you're talking like membership sites versus courses versus
Yeah,
coaching?
yeah,
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 yeah, yeah. So we see it's effective with all of them. Like it really depends on the underlying model that you're running. And so one of the things I've observed is people will run cohorts, right?
yeah,
But they don't really want to run cohorts, but they'll run cohorts because it gives them like a legitimate level of urgency. Like you got to join now. I'm not
yeah,
just making up a deadline and to join my online course where like
yeah.
there's no calls at all. And so people kind of end up constructing programs to have the urgency built in
That's right.
so that there's a legitimate reason to go forward. And like if you legitimately enjoy running the cohort and if you legitimately find that it's the best way to help people get the result, like awesome, like go with it. But what I observe with a lot of my clients who've come to me are in this space is that's not really the case. They would rather people just show up and work with them at whatever level that they're at, but they're built in this cycle of work that includes a lot of like live delivery that they don't really care for.
Yeah,
And so like that's good. That's an issue a little bit. It's still workable if you are running like a live cohort based item. But in my experience, most of the time, if you're running a live cohort based thing, you can switch it to a point where people can join whenever they want and they're working on their own timeline. And there's actually a huge benefit to the group to have people not exactly working through the same content. That's one of the objections I hear people a lot come to me with is like, but like, well, what if everyone's at different places? Does it not get confusing? And no, like I have people in my program and they've been in there for like a year plus, and a new person comes in, and the new person not only gets the benefit of me, but more advanced people in the group who've solved that problem and are masters at it, or people that are like a month or two ahead of them that have just solved it, right? Like
yeah.
not have like developed their own level of mastery, but just recently solved the issues, and they have a completely different frame around the recency of solving the problem, and it's hugely beneficial. So membership sites, courses, coaching programs, it all works great for that. Newsletters, if you're doing a print newsletter, it
Yeah.
works great for that as well. I've yet to find a thing that it doesn't really work with, unless you have like a specific cohort based item, in which case you kind of have to put people on a wait list and or like take a deposit, but that's certainly doable as well.
So how do you deal with the scarcity aspect that works so well in a launch, that is like there's a
Yeah.
deadline, if you're not in by X date, you're not getting in, and that is usually the thing that tips people over the edge of like, okay, I just got the last call email, this is it,
Yeah.
this is my moment, and then they sign up. I mean, that's the most frustrating thing about being a creator in the online space, is like 75% of the sales come in the last like 24 to 48 hours. course. And if
Yeah.
people only knew how much stress they're putting on the shoulders of those who are launching.
Yeah.
but,
Well,
but
like
yeah,
so it's a great question, right? Like, so I from my experience,
yeah,
like I've done a lot of tests, and I was working with an education company who sold like a 2K thing to like digital bookkeepers, helping them become like digital freelance bookkeepers, or selling them to people who wanted to become digital freelance bookkeepers. And like I just said one day for fun, I'm going to run a giant campaign. It's going to be a launch campaign, but we're not closing the cart. Right. This was a
yeah,
few years ago in the early days of the thing. And there were no time dependent bonuses. And there was no like if you don't join before Friday, like we're closing the cart and you won't be able to join. But I just constructed the launch campaign exactly the same as if I just didn't say the cart is closing. I didn't say those things, but the same frequency of emails, an announcement, and all the stuff. And it worked just as well.
yeah,
Right. Like in my experience, having done this for years, like you don't actually have to close the cart.
yeah,
You don't actually have to say, if you don't join now, you're never going to be able to join. And what I've discovered is really like what you're actually doing with the campaign is you're helping people make a decision,
yeah,
right? And the analogy I like to tell my clients is like the launch campaign and the way you're kind of taught psychologically to do it is exactly that. Pile on the pressure and the FOMO. And like, I'm organizing a party. And if you don't come to my party, like, I don't know when I'm going to have another party. And if I am, like, you mightn't be invited. And if you don't come to my party, you're basically going to be a loser, right? Like, because you're going to not have all the fun that we're going to be having. And like, what are you doing with your life? Like, that's kind of the frame,
yeah,
like
for
the
sure.
classic crossroads close where like you're at a moment in time and you have, and it's just like, you know, if you're a real business and you're selling your stuff all the time, like if you know you will want people to join later on, and if you look at your data, like most people don't join the first time they see the offer. Most of the sales, like in my business,
Yeah,
85% of the sales are coming from people who are on my list for longer than 90 days.
yeah,
Like I know it takes people 6 months on average before they're ready to buy from me. And that's fine. That's just like I'm operating in that reality. So the frame I have is I'm organizing lots of parties. And hey, bro, do you want to come to the party at the lake out this weekend? Like, it's cool if you don't, but I'm organizing the cars and I need to know if we want you a space saved in the back of car number 3.
yeah,
Like, if you don't come, that's cool, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
yeah,
And it's just a different psychology. And if you're just consistently asking, right? And like, you do need to help people consider, like, that's what a launch does well, but it's, you can pull apart the components of what a launch is doing, but the deadline, you can absolutely give people deadlines. They don't have to be hard deadlines where the cart is closed, but there can be like, hey, well, are you interested in coming in now? Because some of us are starting a thing next week. And the person just needs a time frame to consider.
yeah,
Because the big mistake I see a lot of people making when they like go evergreen or open every day is they're like, announce the list, you can join whenever you want. Right. And then like it's up to you to come to me. And that's not effective in my experience. Like
no,
if you're opening yourself for business all the time, like great, but it's on you then to consistently lead people into your business and, engineer these moments that are easy to say yes to and for them to consider, is now the right time for me to get started? And it's really easy to do. You don't have to do a massive launch campaign to do it, but that's one of the things to pull apart is you don't need massive urgency and scarcity, but you do need to engineer a moment in time for the reader to ask themselves, is now the right
is
time
this the
for
right
me?
moment? Yeah, I've been noticing with I've seen with Tad, he now has these quarterly cycles where he has like a new theme each quarter where they dive deep into a specific topic. And that's
Yeah.
kind of like, is this the quarter that you're coming in? This is what we're doing. For me, I launched new like live trainings so that people can sign
Yeah.
up for the live training solo, or they can join the subscription and it's included in the subscription along with all the other stuff in the subscription.
Yeah.
And then also we'll be rolling out this fall every month has a theme. So do you want to be writing every day? Great. This month, the theme is writing every day. So come join a community of everybody where we're writing every day. If you don't want that theme, next month might be like making a video short every day or whatever. And like having themes to give people the incentive, like, I've really been wanting to do that. I've been putting it off. This is my
Yeah.
moment to jump in. And I get all these other benefits.
Totally. And that's one of the strategies that we find very effective is like turn the membership inside out, right? Like you're already doing stuff for your members, right? Like if there's an event happening inside in the membership, make that an event, right? Invite people in for that event. That's a great reason to get started, right? If you have a newsletter, right? Like there's a natural cycle that you're sending the newsletter to print every month, and it's like, hey, here's what's in next month's newsletter. Like if you want this upcoming month's newsletter, like you gotta join before Friday because that's when I'm printing it. It's cool if you don't want it, but if this one sounds good to you, like come on in. And those are two really effective models. They're not the only ones,
Yeah.
but just having a natural cycle in your business, right? That is an opportunity to have a conversation with the people in your audience for them to consider, is now a good time. That's really one of the fundamental strategies. There's definitely like, okay, well, what are you doing with your automated marketing to your brand new leads? Like definitely you want to have that sharp. But in my experience, like the vast majority of the sales are coming from the existing audience that you've got. And it's just like asking yourself, how am I getting creative? And how am I consistently asking in a non-weedy, non-pushy kind of way where I'm making offers to the list where it doesn't have to be a giant launch? Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to do 2 weeks of like pre-launch content and massive webinars and videos just to get people on your list to say yes. In my experience, if you're doing your perpetual marketing like all year round,
Yeah.
and you're like building trust with people, like you're constantly winning them over anyway. Like there's people in your audience, I'm sure, they're like, oh, I love to work in practice at some stage, but it's just like I'm looking for the right thing at the right time. And it's just about finding what those things are and finding the frequency at which to ask, and then making it sustainable where it's not you just hammering the list with like buy now pitches, but having an enrollment cycle where you're consistently inviting them in and there's doors in. Like Tad's a great example of that, right? Like that cyclical semester, that's one thing you can do. There's a bunch of other stuff, but like figuring out what the things are for you and then having that cycle is huge.
And what is your frequency with sending emails and articles, videos, etc.? Like what is your kind of publishing schedule and rhythm and routine?
Yeah. So the general philosophy I have is I only send emails on days that I want to make money. And so I mail very aggressively for some people, but I don't think it's that aggressive for me.
Yeah.
I'm also very experienced email marketer, and email is like my superpower.
Yeah.
And so like I don't post on social media like at all. I'm posting on social media like maybe once a week, 4 or 5 times a month. And so email is like what you're subscribing to. This is like my main communication channel. So I'm emailing like 4 or 5 times a week. If I'm enrolling and I have like a big offer, maybe twice a day for a few days, but like I'm not like none of those are just like buy now emails. Like every email is worth sending.
Yeah.
And so the frequency at which some people would post on social media is about the frequency that I would send emails.
Yeah.
What I do versus what I recommend for my clients is different though, right? Like I don't say you need to have to send an email daily, but I will say to my clients, the more you send, the faster you will build trust,
That's
the
right.
faster people will get to know you, the more opportunities there are for people to consider buying from you. Like there's just a lot of benefits to a high frequency. But the caveat is like you have to send emails that are worth sending that people enjoy reading.
And is your primary form of content, are you doing mostly articles? Are you doing video, audio? Like
I just do writing. I just like bang out thought leadership, belief building emails. My main philosophy is like I do cool shit with my clients and I tell stories and deliver insights from that work.
Yeah.
Right. So if I'm on a call with a client and I just see the brain grenade go off, I'm like, awesome, that's an email. Like I was talking with May today and she didn't realize that she was like struggling so much with how she was doing her email marketing. And I gave her a little tweak. She thought she had to do it this way. She did it this way. And now she has an extra 50 grand, right?
Yeah.
Like just that conversation that was happening behind the scenes in my business. I'll write about that, right?
Yeah. I love it.
Or we'll have this conversation and I'm like, oh, I was just talking with Steve Bradley. And as we were jamming, he drew this distinction about this thing. And I never thought about it this way. Like
There's an article. And
yeah,
are your word counts, are you keep them short? Are they?
yeah. So it's the classic old school analogy of like a mini skirt, short enough to keep it interesting, but long enough to cover the essentials. But like if I've got something to say, I'm saying it. But like understand that, it's if you're just waffling on, like you're gonna lose people unless you know how to write. So my general rule of thumb is I aim for 300 to 600 words.
Yeah.
But if it's 800 words, 1200 words, and it's like I just had to say something, I don't really care. Like I know that I'm a good writer, and when I'm sharing something, there's always going to be like the hardcore readers that appreciate it.
Yeah.
But I definitely find that the shorter the email, the more responses you get, just because more people will have completed reading the email. But that's not always the main thing you want to optimize for.
Yeah.
But as a general rule of thumb, I recommend clients like try and keep it at around 500 words or less.
Yeah. And what are some of the tools you're enjoying geeking out with these days?
So I went down the AI rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And I know AI is kind of like we've reached peak AI now, but what I love is like ChatGPT is good and I use that, but Midjourney, which is like the AI image generator, that's been just like the rate at which they're developing that tool and the innovations and the improvements, like it just continues to thrill me. And so we figured out now that I'm like, I'm now incorporating that into a lot of my slides for my trainings for clients. Like I worked with someone and we kind of got a brand vibe prompt guide. So now like, I have like these really cool art pieces that don't look like they're AI art because like I worked with a guy and he showed me how to process it now. So I create the image, but then we're putting it through a branded color filter and then we're putting my text and logo on it. So it's it looks awesome. So that's definitely something that I'm on top of.
Fun.
Sounds like you've had a lot of fun with Midjourney too.
I dabbled very briefly, but you're kind of getting me inspired to go check it out again. Cause I did it in the earlier stages and I wasn't stoked about what I was getting, but I think I just need to spend a little more time down there. But I mean, I found, I really like a conversation like this. I'll run this transcript through Descript, and I will put that through ChatGPT to help me like flesh out some of the essential points and turn that into an article. Because typically when when I'm writing articles, I'll go in front of the camera, the computer, my audio, and I'll read the articles with like some improv riffs on them so that I turn all my articles into videos, podcast episodes, and articles for my blog or for Substack and put them out that way. So there's 3 different ways to consume. I'm kind of like 1 to 2 times a week with my newsletter, but I'm definitely inspired by what you're sharing because I agree. Like I'm not on social media. The primary way I communicate is through my email list. My open rates are, 40% most of the time. So it's like a solid open rate. So people are
what you'll find, I'd encourage you to send more, right? What you'll find when you start to increase your sending frequency is your open rates will go down. All right. And initially your unsubs will go up, but then what will happen is the unsubs will come back down to normal. Yeah. Because there's just when you mail more, you just have to understand how unsubscribes work. There's just people on your list who were kind of checked out and aren't really following along, but they haven't unsubscribed because you mailing frequently isn't being like, I don't want these emails anymore. Yeah. Like that just hasn't triggered them. Yeah. So you'll get some unsubs and then it'll balance out, power through that. And don't be discouraged by the fact that your open rates are going down because open rates are in email marketing are a flawed metric to judge everything by. Yeah. Because what will happen is there's just going to be some people in your world who are like once a week readers.
Yeah,
right? And
absolutely.
so they'll check in, and instead of like seeing 2 emails, they might see 5 or 6. And they're not going to open all 5 or 6. They're going to see the 5 or 6 as they're scrolling, and they'll pick 1 or 2 to read. And so your reads get spread across your emails. But what you really want to look at is total readers.
Yeah.
And what you'll find is the total readers number definitely goes up. So the per email read rate goes down, but the total people on your list who read an email every week is much higher.
Yeah.
And that's really the metric that you want to be looking at is, how well are you engaging your entire audience, not how engaging is one email to the entire audience, if that makes
Yes.
sense.
No, that totally
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm not really much like, I don't care. I'm just been watching, but it's like it'll go up, it'll go down. As I'm just here to coach and share, and the right people who want to be opening are going to be opening, and the right people who want to be working with us, like they're going to do that. They'll step forward. But I agree, like the frequency is really important. I know a lot of people who only email once a month or twice a
Yeah.
month because they don't want to bug people. And
Yeah.
the truth is like that's the worst mindset, because people have signed up to hear from you. They want to hear from you. They're excited to hear from you because you're the person that they want to listen to. And if you're holding back, then you're holding back.
Yeah. Now the 100%, and like the one of the two beliefs that people kind of have as it relates to their email marketing that I don't think serve them. One is they tend to take the feedback they get from individuals and then project that onto the reality of the whole email list.
Yeah.
So they start sending emails, and then they get 1 or 2 people saying, "You send too many emails." And then they're like, "Oh no, I don't want my list to hate me and think I start sending too many emails." But you got to understand that, like, if you have like 500, 2,000, 10,000 people on an email list, they're all individuals. They're having their own unique experiences. And someone saying that they're not enjoying the emails, or they think you're sending too many emails, I guarantee for every one of those, there's another 50 or 100 that are saying, "Oh, wow, I really like Mary's emails. She's like really going for it. She's got a lot to say and I'm enjoying it." Right.
Yeah.
And you do not want to optimize your email marketing to minimize complaints from trolls and complainers.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they're out there.
Like,
and they're going to
they
do what
are
they
out
do,
there.
which is troll and complain.
100%. That's not to say ignore feedback at all, but
Yeah.
understand that the type of people who are going to take the time out of their day to complain to you about your marketing, frankly, like none of the people who buy from me are that type of person. And so I want to optimize my email marketing to respectfully, right? You got to respect someone's inbox.
Yeah.
You got to show up, and you got to do good, and you got to be worth reading. But I want to respectfully accelerate the relationship I'm building with the ideal person who does want to hear from me, who is in pain and is looking for a solution. I want to optimize my email marketing for them, not to minimize complaints from people who probably aren't going to buy,
Yeah.
And like when you're in heat, dude, like we've all been there. When you are like needing to solve a problem and you're like, I got to buy something to solve this problem. Like there's not enough information. You will read everything. You'll just go down the rabbit hole, and people want to hear from you when they're in that mode.
Well, and yeah, the people that are following you, it's because they want to hear from you. And so let them hear from you. And what, just to summarize what you're talking about earlier, and how I've approached podcasting over the years, is like, I just take the best parts of my coaching stuff that I do one-on-one or in small groups, and I bring that out to the public so that everybody has access to those lessons that are being learned. Because if one person's having the breakthrough because of something that they were struggling with, and then you help solve that problem, there's going to be 100 or thousands of people out there that are struggling with the exact same thing, that are mirroring that problem. And then by just sharing that publicly, like, we're bringing people on the journey with us. And that's kind of the perspective switch with the newsletters. Like, bring people on a long arc journey with you on your own hero's journey, and they're on their hero's journey, and you're all climbing the mountain together. And that's the beautiful game.
100%. Like, the way I articulate exactly what you said to my clients is, it's all about conversations.
Yeah.
It's about what conversations you're in, what conversations you're having with clients. And then It's about sharing those conversations with the people outside in your broader audience, with the understanding of saying, like, these are the conversations we're having. This is the type of people I'm talking to. This is the sorts of stuff that we solve here. This is what I'm involved in. Do you want to be a part of this conversation? You know what I mean? It's like, pull the curtain back on the nightclub. You're the bouncer. It's like, there's a raging party in here. This is what's happening. Like, this is the sorts of things we're doing. Like, do you want to be part of the fun? Like, show them what's already happening in your world, and people like the people already in your world will want to join. You know,
that's right.
That's really the best way to think about it.
That's right. One final question, just around your philosophy around like how you've built your business to accommodate the lifestyle. I think so many people start off their journey of entrepreneurship of like, they want the lifestyle, and entrepreneurship feels like the clearest path on like how you create freedom in your lifestyle. But then they become overwhelmed by what it actually takes to be a successful entrepreneur and all the things that you have to do. So how do you draw balance to live a lifestyle that is of your own making while also building the business?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think generally there's a relationship between complexity and simplicity.
Yeah.
And I think you have to go through the complexity before you can enjoy the simplicity. It's one of my coaches pointed out, and I think it's 100% true. And like, I think a lot of people get into entrepreneurship and there's in a lot of complexity. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of ways to do things, and you don't know which ones will work for you. And you got to try things, and then stuff falls apart. And then there's a whole bunch of like burning whatever. And that's just part of the journey. Eventually though, you do find a few things. And one is what's effective from a fundamental perspective on your delivery, on your marketing, and then what's personally effective for you. Again, like you're kind of talking about earlier with the marketing strategy, but what's personally effective for you on the delivery side of things. Like, I love what we're doing right now. There's something in my calendar. I kind of got a few details about what it was going to be about. You're a shoot from the hip kind of guy. Let's just get on and have a good conversation. Like, me showing up live and improvising, I love it.
Yeah.
Like, but I talk to some people and they see what I do and they're like, bro, like, you really enjoy talking to your clients. Like, I would kill myself if I had to talk to clients at the level you do. And that's fine. Some people are not an extrovert like me. They're introverts. You know what I mean? And you just got to find what is it that brings you joy, what is easy for you.
Yeah.
And you have to discover those things first. And you have to discover the overlap between what is easy and brings you joy, but also that adds value to your clients. And for some people, it's writing a newsletter. It's like they write a killer paid printed newsletter and they ship that puppy out, and people rip it open every month and they love it. I hate deadlines. If I had to like hit a deadline to send that thing to a printer every month, like I would be behind it every month and I would look unprofessional. Like, that's just not me. Right. Yeah. And so you got to figure out the model that works for you. And that's going to come from experimentation. And then you have to make it personally effective to the point where, like, how much money do you need? I think it's a question a lot of people should ask and get clear on the answer, because for a lot of folks, they chase more money and they think life is going to get better if they hit X revenue number, and they don't have any constraints for their personal life and time to be protected. And so it's just work.
Yeah.
And then it's like, there's always another thing to do. There's no end to the work ever. Like, you just have to address that reality. And then you got to get comfortable with how much work do I actually want or need to do so that I have enough time for myself. So for me, like, I'm building a 2-person business, myself and my wife. She also works in the business. And our constraints are, we want to hit $500K, $750,000 in profit. And I only want to have to do delivery for 2 days a week. So that's the goalpost that we're building towards. And I don't want to have to be on Zoom calls with clients for more than 6 hours a week. Yeah. That's like what we are aiming at. And we're close. Like, we have more revenue to add to get to that point in profit. And like, I am less than 6 hours a week on Zoom calls most weeks, but then things can spike when things happen. And But again, that's a problem that we are aware of and looking to solve, and we know what success looks like.
Yeah.
But I think I want to do that because I want to train jujitsu. I want to write books, right? I want to be able to travel, and I know what I want to do with my free time.
Yeah.
And when I say free time, I mean time away from work. And I think if you aren't clear on what the number is, you will fill your time with stuff just to make more money.
Scroll
But
the
you
damn
also,
wall. Just put me on
right?
social media. I'll pass the time.
But you will fill your time. Like space gets filled. This is just the
Yes.
principle of of our world. If
Yeah.
there is empty space, it will be filled. And so you either have to get clear on what space in your calendar or your personal time is protected and what you will use it for. Like, is it training jujitsu, making music? Like, what do you want to do outside of work? And then how do you know when you're successful? Like, how do you know when you have to stop working hard and start moving into harvesting mode?
Yeah.
Right? Because if you don't, like, the world of marketing is filled with people that are happy to shame you for your revenue and profit numbers not being high enough. And if you aren't strong yourself on, no, I'm good here, like you're going to be led by someone else into thinking that you have to go bigger, and that's not always the case. So, I'm not sure if that was the answer you were looking for, but it's like how I have thought about balancing things out, or why people don't have the balance that they look for.
I think that gave some people some really clear things to walk away and journal about and contemplate, because it's important questions to ask. And I know a lot of people shy away from the money question of like, well, how much is enough? And how much do you actually need? And what are you actually trying to do? And what are your motivations to try and grow something really big? I have that thing with myself, trying to do
Yeah,
big things and being clear on like why is this
totally,
driving me?
totally.
It's an
And
important
I don't think there's
question.
anything wrong with having a desire to do big things if
Yeah.
it's like, if it's true and you want it. But I think I've talked to a lot of people that say they want $1 million business, and they're like, why why do you want $1 million business? Or I want $500,000 in the bank. I was like, why do you want $500,000 in the bank? And like, there's no clear answer for why it is. If it's like, because I want to buy a house in London and it's really fucking expensive, and that's how much I need to buy the house, I'm like, cool, well, let's work towards that. But I think just the chasing of money and
Yeah.
all these things without a clear intention behind it, I think that's where people can get themselves in trouble. And also, like, just being clear about what it is that brings you joy and fills you up, because like, if you're not topping yourself up, you're gonna burn out, and that's the last thing we want.
Yeah, exactly. Final questions. One, what are your revenue streams? How do you make money? Where does money come from inside of your business?
Yeah, so we shifted. We were for a number of years doing a lot of done for you kind of marketing execution, pay us on results sort of
Yeah.
stuff. And that was great, very, very profitable. But I find I'm a natural teacher. It's a gift. I love presenting. I get more out of it. It's more fulfilling.
Yeah.
So we shifted to done with you coaching last year full time, and our primary revenue streams right now are just all from that. So it's a coaching program where people are paying to work with us for a long period, 3 to 12 months. We have a small coaching program where people work with us. I still do a small bit of done for you work with kind of clients that I have long existing relationships with, where they're just like, I can do their stuff very quickly. It's not a huge amount of time on my end. And that will, like, it's a few $1,000s for a campaign, and it takes me, maybe a half a day kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's easy to do. On top of that, also, we have some one-to-one clients, kind of private clients who pay us for kind of a higher level of coaching. And then we have some more recently, like, you just call it course sales. So it's just, hey, this is training that has been highly effective for our coaching clients. If you want this, here you go. You can just buy the training.
Yeah.
And, that's only a few $1,000s. We're not talking about major revenue, but it's something that we're starting to do. There's no like coaching associated to it, but those are the main revenue streams.
Sweet.
It's all very much focused just on like core clients that we create the strategies, and then we either help them with execution, which done with you, or extra one-to-one coaching, or just selling the training with no coaching. Those
Awesome.
are kind of the primary streams.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. That helps people to like imagine possibilities every time they hear an interview. They get to like, oh, I can do that. Oh, like, there's so many ways to do these types of education businesses. And so that's helpful. And as far as where people can go to get the best, obviously sign up for your newsletter. Do you have, what's the best link for people to go to?
Yeah, I would go to openeverydaybook.com, and that will take you to a landing page on our website, and you can just click the button, fill out the form, and that will put you on our newsletter. It will also deliver a free copy of our book called Open Every Day. It'll give you a PDF version. There's some training on the other side of that as well. There's a couple of other resources, so you can have all those for free. If you opt in there, I'm going to send you an email to start a conversation with you. If you want to have a conversation with us, reply to that email. If you don't want to talk to us straight away, no problem. Sit back. You'll be on our newsletter. We'll send you some kind of our best hit emails for the first week or so, and then it'll be kind of, you'll just be on our, what I call the radio show, right? Here's what's happening in Ross's world right now. We run workshops every month or so. There's free new tools we give out on there as well. So there's a bunch of stuff we send people ongoing. And if any of that looks good, grab it. It's yours for the taking. And if we have a conversation and you want some help, that's cool too. We'll definitely be in touch.
Beautiful. This has been fun. Thank you for an inspiring conversation, Ross. I really appreciate it. It's great to be connected now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
hopefully, something tells me this won't be the last time that we talk.
We shall meet again, my friend. If you're ever on the West Coast, look me up.
Absolutely, dude.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.